Dr. Yunho stood at his lab window, watching the night sky over Seoul. He had been studying stars since he was a child, but tonight something was different. 3 bright lights hung above the moon, growing larger by the hour. His phone buzzed with emergency alerts. The news channels showed the same image from around the world. Massive ships, each one the size of a city, had appeared near Earth's moon. They were not human ships. Yunho grabbed his jacket and ran to his car. As the leading expert on space biology at Seoul National University, he knew the government would call him soon. He was right. His phone rang before he reached the highway. "Dr. Yunho, this is General Park from the Defense Ministry. We need you at the command center immediately." The command center buzzed with activity. Military officers spoke in quick, worried voices. Scientists stared at computer screens showing data from the alien ships. Captain So-min stood near the main screen, her uniform crisp despite the early morning hour. "Doctor, thank you for coming so quickly," Captain So-min said. She was younger than Yunho expected, maybe 35, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "We have a situation." The main screen showed one of the alien ships up close. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. The metal seemed to flow like water and lights pulsed along its surface like a heartbeat. "They made contact 20 minutes ago," So-min continued. The message was simple but clear. "They want to talk." Yunho felt his heart racing. First contact with alien life. Every scientist dreamed of this moment, but not like this. Not with giant warships hanging over Earth. "What did they say exactly?" he asked. An older officer stepped forward. "They broadcast in perfect Korean, English, Chinese, and 50 other languages. The message was, your species has something we need. Help us and we will share the stars with you." The room fell quiet. Yunho looked around at the faces of soldiers and scientists. Everyone was thinking the same thing. What could Earth possibly have that such advanced beings would need? "We're sending a team to meet with them," Captain So-min said. "They've agreed to send a small ship to the space station. You'll lead the science team." Yunho nodded slowly. "When do we leave?" "In 6 hours." The space shuttle felt tiny compared to the alien craft waiting at the International Space Station. Yunho sat with 5 other scientists and Captain So-min's security team. Everyone was quiet during the trip up. The alien ship docked with the station smoothly. It was smaller than the motherships but still impressive. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. The first alien to step through was tall and thin with blue-gray skin and large dark eyes. It wore something that might have been a uniform, though the material seemed to shift color as it moved. "I am Admiral Kethvar of the Galactic Coalition," the alien said. Its voice was deep and musical. "I greet you on behalf of the free peoples of this galaxy." Yunho stepped forward. His hands shook slightly, but his voice was steady. "I am Dr. Yunho of Earth. We welcome you, though we're curious why you've come." Kethvar's expression was hard to read, but Yunho sensed sadness in those dark eyes. "We come because we are dying. Our entire civilization faces extinction." The alien activated a device that projected images in the air. Yunho gasped. The images showed space battles on a scale he couldn't imagine. Fleets of ships fighting against something dark and terrible. Planets being consumed by what looked like living shadow. "This is the Void Swarm," Kethvar said. "They have destroyed 60% of our territory in 2 years. They consume everything in their path. Planets, stars, entire systems disappear into their darkness." Captain So-min stepped closer. "What does this have to do with Earth?" Kethvar's image changed to show brain scans. "Every species in the galaxy has tried to fight the swarm. They all fail because the swarm can control minds. They turn our own people against us. But your species is different." More images appeared showing human brain activity compared to alien brain patterns. "Your neural structure is unique. You can resist their mental influence. You are the only species we've found that the swarm cannot control." Yunho felt the weight of the alien's words. "You want us to fight for you?" "We want you to fight with us," Kethvar corrected. "In return, we offer you membership in the Galactic Coalition. Advanced technology, new worlds to explore, knowledge beyond your current understanding." Captain So-min's hand moved closer to her weapon. "And if we refuse?" Kethvar was quiet for a moment. Then the projector showed something that made everyone in the room step back. A star system being consumed by the swarm. Planets cracked apart like eggs, billions of lives ending in darkness. If we fall, the swarm will continue to spread. Eventually, they will reach your system. Earth will face them alone, without allies, without advanced weapons. Your resistance to their mind control won't matter when they turn your sun into fuel for their expansion. The room was silent except for the hum of the space station's life support. Yunho looked at Captain Somin. She looked back at him. Both understood what was happening. Earth had no choice. We need to discuss this with our governments, Somin said finally. Of course, but please understand time is short. The swarm grows stronger every day we delay. The next week passed in a blur of meetings, arguments, and desperate calculations. World leaders debated while Kethvar waited patiently at the space station. The alien admiral provided more information about the war, showing Earth's military experts the scope of the threat. Some countries wanted to hide and hope the war would pass Earth by. Others wanted to negotiate with the swarm directly. But the scientists led by Yunho understood the truth. This was not a war Earth could avoid. Finally, the United Nations reached a decision. They would send volunteers to help the coalition. 3,000 of Earth's best soldiers, led by Captain Somin and advised by Dr. Yunho. The volunteers gathered at a launch facility, hastily built in international waters. Men and women from every nation on Earth stood together, knowing they might never return home. Captain Somin addressed them before they boarded the alien transport ships. We go not as servants, but as representatives of humanity. We carry with us the hopes of our entire species. Dr. Yunho watched from the observation deck as the volunteers entered the alien ships. The vessels were beautiful inside, with walls that seemed to be made of living crystal, but he couldn't shake the feeling that they were making a terrible mistake. Admiral Kethvar stood beside him. Your people are brave, the alien said. They're also trusting, Yunho replied. I hope that trust is deserved. Kethvar was quiet for a long moment. Doctor, war changes everything it touches. Your people will not return from this unchanged. The ships began to rise, carrying 3,000 humans toward a war they didn't fully understand. Yunho watched until they disappeared among the stars, wondering if he would ever see Earth again. Below them, the planet continued to turn, unaware that its children were now fighting for the survival of the entire galaxy. The journey to Keth Prime took 2 weeks. The human volunteers lived in special quarters aboard the coalition ships, learning to use alien technology and studying their enemy. Private Jin Woo had been a police officer in Seoul before volunteering for this mission. He was good at noticing things others missed. During the journey, he noticed how the alien crew members looked at the humans, not with respect or friendship, but like tools in a toolbox. They don't see us as equals, he told Sergeant Hyejin during one of their training sessions. She was practicing with an alien weapon that fired beams of energy instead of bullets. Hyejin had led special forces teams in Korea before joining the mission. She understood people and power. I've noticed it too. They're polite, but they keep us separate from their important meetings. Engineer Da-Yoon was the youngest member of their group. Barely 25, but she had an amazing ability to understand how things worked. She was studying an alien computer when Jin Woo and Hyejin found her. Look at this, she said, pointing at the screen. They've given us basic equipment, but the really advanced stuff is locked away. I can't even access the weapon modification systems. Maybe they don't trust us yet, Hyejin suggested. Or maybe they don't want us getting too powerful, Jin Woo replied. Their conversation was interrupted by an announcement. They had arrived at Keth Prime, the Coalition's last major fortress world. Through the ship's windows, they could see the massive planet covered in defensive structures. Ships moved between orbital platforms like busy insects. Commander Veltar met the humans at the docking bay. He was a different species from Admiral Kethvar, shorter and covered in what looked like natural armor. His voice was sharp and impatient. Humans, you will be assigned to defensive positions around the planet. Your job is to serve as psychic anchors for our forces. Stay close to Coalition units and follow orders exactly. Dr. Yunho stepped forward. Commander, we'd like to understand the tactical situation better. Our people fight more effectively when they understand the overall strategy. Veltar's eyes narrowed. Your people are here to follow orders, not to make strategy. The Coalition has been fighting this war for longer than your species has existed. Private Jinwoo watched the exchange and felt his suspicions growing. The aliens clearly didn't want human input on military planning. The first battle came 3 days later. Long-range sensors detected a swarm fleet approaching the outer defense line. Jinwoo found himself assigned to a coalition strike team along with 20 other humans and 50 alien soldiers. The coalition's plan was simple and direct. Their ships would form a line and fire their weapons at the approaching swarm vessels. The humans would stay behind the alien soldiers and provide psychic protection. "This is a terrible plan," Jinwoo muttered to himself as their ship approached the battle zone. Through the viewports, he could see the enemy for the first time. The swarm ships didn't look like ships at all. They were organic, like enormous insects or sea creatures. They moved in patterns that seemed random but felt somehow intelligent. The coalition fleet opened fire when the swarm came within range. Energy beams and missiles streaked across space. Some swarm ships exploded, but others seemed to absorb the damage and keep coming. Then the real horror began. Some coalition ships suddenly turned and began firing on their own allies. Jinwoo realized what was happening. The swarm was taking control of alien minds and turning them against each other. "This is exactly what they said would happen," Hyejin shouted over the sound of alarms. "The swarm is controlling them." But the coalition commander stuck to the plan. The ships maintained their formation even as more vessels fell under swarm control. Jinwoo watched in growing frustration as the organized line of coalition ships became a chaotic mess. "We need to break formation," he told the alien officer commanding their strike team. "Spread out, make it harder for the swarm to coordinate attacks." "Negative. We follow standard battle doctrine." Jinwoo looked at Hyejin. She nodded slightly. Without saying anything, they both understood what needed to happen. "All human units, this is Sergeant Hyejin," she broadcast on their private communication channel. "Break formation and engage targets of opportunity. Use guerrilla tactics." The humans scattered, ignoring the angry shouts from their alien commanders. Engineer Da-eun had modified their weapons during the journey, making them more powerful than the standard coalition equipment. Jinwoo used his police training to read the battle, looking for patterns in the swarm's movement. They're not random, he realized. The swarm ships are protecting something in the center of their formation. He marked targets on the tactical display and shared them with the other humans. "Hit these ships first. They're coordinating the mind control attacks." The human fighters dove toward the swarm formation, using unpredictable flight patterns that confused the organic ships. Their modified weapons cut through swarm vessels like knives through paper. Engineer Da-eun had discovered something amazing about the alien technology. It could be programmed to adapt during battle, learning from each shot fired. Her modifications allowed the human weapons to become more effective with each hit. Private Jinwoo's tactical instincts proved correct. When the humans destroyed the coordinator ships at the center of the swarm formation, the mind control attacks stopped. Coalition ships that had been turned against their allies suddenly returned to normal. The remaining swarm vessels tried to escape, but the human fighters were faster and more agile than anyone expected. Within an hour, the entire swarm fleet had been destroyed. The coalition command ship was very quiet when the human fighters returned. Commander Veltar stood in the docking bay, his face unreadable. "You disobeyed direct orders," he said to Sergeant Hyejin. "We won the battle," she replied, calmly. "You broke formation and endangered the mission." Dr. Yunho stepped between them. "Commander, this was the first coalition victory against the swarm in months. Perhaps we should focus on understanding why the human tactics worked." Veltar stared at Yunho for a long moment. "The humans will report to debriefing immediately. Alone." As they walked to the debriefing room, Jinwoo whispered to Hyejin, "He's scared of us." "Good," she replied. Fear means respect. But Jinwoo wasn't sure it was that simple. The way Veltar looked at them reminded him of something from his police work. It was the look people got when they realized a situation was getting out of their control. The debriefing lasted hours. Coalition officers asked detailed questions about human tactics and decision-making. They were particularly interested in how the humans had identified the swarm coordinator ships. "Pattern recognition," Jinwoo explained. "In police work, you learn to see connections that aren't obvious." "And the weapon modifications?" another officer asked. Engineer Da-eun shifted uncomfortably. "I just improved the efficiency of the existing systems." After the debriefing, the humans were assigned to separate quarters from the main coalition crews. They were told it was for their own protection, but Jinwoo knew better. "They're isolating us," he told the others during their evening meal. "First they didn't want our input on strategy. Now they don't want us mixing with their regular forces." Hyejin nodded. "We proved we're more effective than they expected. That makes us dangerous to their command structure." Dr. Yunho looked troubled. We came here to help them win the war. If they start seeing us as a threat instead of allies, then we need to be very careful, Engineer Daoun finished. Because if they decide we're too dangerous to keep around, we're a long way from home. Outside their quarters, the fortress world of Keth Prime continued its preparations for war. Coalition ships patrolled the system and defensive platforms charged their weapons. But in the human quarters, 3,000 volunteers from Earth began to understand that they were fighting more than one kind of battle. The enemy they came to fight was the Void Swarm, but the enemy they hadn't expected was the fear and suspicion of their own allies. Jinwu stared out at the alien stars and wondered if humanity had made a terrible mistake by trusting beings who saw them only as weapons to be used and discarded. News of humanity's victory at Keth Prime spread quickly through both the Coalition and the Void Swarm. Within days, more human volunteers arrived from Earth, including Colonel Tae-hyun, a veteran strategist who had planned military operations across 3 continents. Colonel Tae-hyun was older than most of the volunteers, 55 years old with gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. He had studied every major war in human history and understood, something the Coalition leaders didn't, that rigid thinking loses battles. Show me the tactical reports from your first engagement, he said to Sergeant Hyejin on his first day at Keth Prime. Hyejin spread out the battle data on a display table. We broke Coalition formation and used independent attack patterns. The aliens weren't happy about it. Tae-hyun studied the information carefully. They weren't happy because you proved their doctrine is outdated. How many victories has the Coalition achieved in the past year? According to their records, none until we arrived. And they've been fighting this war for how long? Over 200 years. Tae-hyun leaned back in his chair. 200 years of defeats, and they're angry when someone tries a new approach. That tells us something important about our allies. The colonel's concerns grew when he attended his first Coalition strategy meeting. Admiral Kethvar and Commander Veltar presented their plan for the next major operation against the swarm. We will advance in 3 waves, Veltar explained, pointing at a holographic display. First wave engages the enemy fleet. Second wave provides support. Third wave moves in to secure the objectives. What about the swarm's ability to take control of our ships? Tae-hyun asked. The humans will be distributed evenly across all 3 waves to provide psychic protection. Tae-hyun frowned. Respectfully, Commander. That spreads our most effective fighters too thin. Concentrated human forces have proven more successful. The room fell silent. Admiral Kethavar's expression was cold. Colonel, your species is new to space warfare. The Coalition has developed these tactics over centuries of experience. Centuries of defeats, Tae-hyun replied quietly. After the meeting, Dr. Yunho approached Tae-hyun privately. Colonel, I've been studying the swarm's behavior patterns. I think there's something the Coalition isn't telling us. What kind of something? The swarm doesn't act like a mindless enemy. Their attacks show strategy, even creativity. And there's something else. Yunho showed him brain scan data. Dr. Jae-sung has been studying humans who've had direct contact with swarm forces. He's found unusual neural activity. Dr. Jae-sung was a psychologist who had volunteered to study how the war affected human minds. His findings were disturbing. The humans who faced the swarm report dreams, visions, sometimes even direct communication. It's as if the swarm is trying to tell us something. Meanwhile, Corporal Minseo was becoming a legend among both human and alien forces. She was the best sniper anyone had ever seen, able to hit swarm weak points from impossible distances. But success came with a price. I can feel them, she told Hyejin after a particularly difficult battle. When I aim at them, it's like they know I'm there. Sometimes I hear voices in my head. What kind of voices? Sad ones. They sound afraid. The revelation troubled everyone who heard it. The Void Swarm was supposed to be a mindless force of destruction, but the evidence suggested something else entirely. Colonel Tae-hyun decided to test his own theories about Coalition leadership. During the next battle, he quietly organized human forces into independent strike teams instead of spreading them across Coalition units as ordered. The results were spectacular. Human teams, working together with their modified weapons and flexible tactics, destroyed 3 times as many swarm ships as mixed Coalition human units. But the victory created new problems. Commander Veltar was furious. You directly disobeyed strategic deployment orders. I followed the primary objective. Destroy swarm forces, Tae-hyun replied calmly. The mission was successful. You undermined Coalition command authority. I saved Coalition lives by using effective tactics. Admiral Kethvar intervened before the argument could escalate further. Colonel, while your results are impressive, military discipline requires following orders, not improvising. That night, Tae-hyun called a private meeting of human senior staff. They're more concerned with maintaining control than winning the war, he told them. Engineer Da-yoon had made disturbing discoveries of her own. I've been trying to understand Coalition technology better, but I keep running into barriers. It's not just that they won't share advanced equipment. The technology itself is designed to prevent reverse engineering. What does that mean? Asked Hyejin. It means they never intended to really share their knowledge with us. The technology they've given us is deliberately limited. Dr. Jae-sung added his own concerns. I've been analyzing Coalition historical records. They've contacted other species before to help fight the swarm. Those species are no longer mentioned in any records after the wars ended. The implications were chilling. Colonel Tae-hyun realized they needed to prepare for the possibility that the Coalition saw humans as temporary tools to be discarded when no longer needed. We need our own command structure, he decided. Officially, we'll continue to follow Coalition orders. Unofficially, we'll maintain independent communication and coordination. Setting up a secret command network wasn't easy. The Coalition monitored human communications, but engineer Da-won found ways around their surveillance. She discovered that human brain patterns could be used to encode messages that alien technology couldn't decode. It's the same neural resistance that protects us from swarm mind control, she explained. Our thoughts create patterns their systems can't interpret. The secret network allowed human forces to coordinate without Coalition knowledge. When orders came down that seemed tactically unsound, human units could quietly adjust their positions to be more effective. But the Coalition wasn't stupid. Commander Veltar began to notice that human forces were performing better than their official deployment should have allowed. The humans are communicating without our knowledge, he told Admiral Kethvar. They're developing independent capabilities. That was always a risk, the Admiral replied. A species capable of resisting swarm mental influence would naturally resist other forms of control as well. Then, perhaps it's time to consider other options. Admiral, Kethvar was quiet for a long moment. Not yet. We still need them to fight the swarm, but begin preparations for containment measures. Unknown to the Coalition leaders, Dr. Jae-sung had been working with Corporal Min-seo to understand her psychic connection to the swarm. Their research led to an incredible discovery. They're not just a weapon. Jae-sung told Colonel Tae-hyun during one of their secret meetings. The swarm used to be something else, something peaceful. I think they were changed, maybe by an accident or experiment. Changed by whom? I'm not sure yet, but Min-seo's visions suggest the swarm remembers what they used to be. They're not attacking because they're evil. They're attacking because they can't control themselves. Colonel Tae-hyun felt the pieces of a larger puzzle falling into place. A bioweapon that got out of control. Coalition species that disappeared after helping fight the swarm. Technology designed to prevent human advancement. What if the Coalition created the swarm? He asked quietly. What if this whole war is their fault and now they're using other species to clean up their mess? The question hung in the air like a dangerous secret. If Tae-hyun was right, then humanity wasn't just fighting alongside duplicitous allies. They were helping to cover up the greatest crime in galactic history. Outside the human quarters, Coalition forces continued their preparations for the next phase of the war. But inside those quarters, 3,000 volunteers from Earth began to understand that the real enemy might not be the Void Swarm at all. Colonel Tae-hyun stared at the tactical displays showing swarm movements across the galaxy. Somewhere in that dark expansion was the truth about who created this monster and why, and humanity was going to find that truth no matter what the Coalition wanted them to know. General Soo-jin had never expected to become the leader of humanity's first interstellar military force. 3 months ago, she had been Colonel Soo-jin, planning defense strategies for the Korean peninsula. Now she commanded 12,000 human volunteers scattered across 6 star systems. The promotion came after the Coalition's worst defeat in decades. A massive swarm assault had broken through their main defense line, and only coordinated human counterattacks had prevented total collapse. The Coalition leadership, desperate for any advantage, had finally agreed to give humans more authority. But with authority came terrible knowledge. "General, you need to see this," Dr. Yunho said, entering her command center with a data pad. His face was pale and his hands shook slightly. Sujin took the pad and read the information. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. "This can't be real. I verified it 3 times. The Coalition has been hiding a weapon that could end the war immediately. But the power requirements..." Yunho's voice trailed off. "The weapon was called the Null Generator. According to the technical specifications, it could destroy the swarm's central hive mind from anywhere in the galaxy. The energy cost was enormous. It would drain the life force from an entire star system to power a single shot. They want to use our solar system," Sujin said quietly. "They want to sacrifice Earth, 8 billion people plus all life in our system, to power their ultimate weapon." Sujin set down the data pad and walked to the window overlooking the Coalition Command Center. Below, alien officers moved between tactical displays, planning the next phase of the war. They looked calm, professional, dedicated. None of them looked like beings who were planning genocide. "How did you find this information?" Engineer Da-un broke through their security barriers. "She's been working on it for weeks." General Sujin called an emergency meeting of her senior staff. Colonel Taehyun, Sergeant Heejin, Dr. Jae-sung, Engineer Da-yoon, and Corporal Min Seo gathered in a secure room that Da-un had modified to block Coalition surveillance. "We have a problem," Sujin began, and explained what Yunho had discovered. The room was silent for a long moment. Finally, Colonel Taehyun spoke. "How long before they implement this plan?" "The Coalition Supreme Council meets tomorrow to authorize final preparations," Yunho replied. "They believe the war has reached a critical stage where extreme measures are necessary." Dr. Jae-sung leaned forward. "There's something else. My research with Min Seo has revealed more about the swarm's true nature. I believe we can cure them instead of destroying them." "Cure them?" asked Hyejin. "The swarm is infected with some kind of biological weapon that corrupted their original species. If we can reverse that infection, they'll return to what they were before, a peaceful, intelligent civilization." Corporal Min Seo nodded. "In my visions, I see them as they used to be. They were artists, philosophers, explorers. The violence isn't their choice. It's a compulsion they can't control." Engineer Da-yoon pulled up holographic displays showing technical data. "I've been studying swarm biology and Coalition historical records. The timeline matches Dr. Jae-sung's theory. The swarm appeared suddenly in Coalition space about 300 years ago, right after the Coalition finished a major bioweapons research project." Colonel Tae-hyun studied the information carefully. "So the Coalition created the swarm by accident, then spent 3 centuries using other species to fight their mistake. And now they want to commit genocide to cover it up." "That's what the evidence suggests," Yunho confirmed. General Sujin felt the weight of command settling on her shoulders. Every decision she made would affect not just her soldiers, but potentially the entire galaxy. "What are our options?" "We can follow Coalition orders and help them sacrifice Earth," Taehyun said grimly. "We can refuse and face the consequences. Or we can try to find a third option." "The third option?" Dr. Jae-sung answered. "We cure the swarm ourselves, end the war without genocide." "And how do we do that without Coalition support?" Engineer Da-yoon smiled for the first time in days. "We don't need their support. We need their equipment, which we've been studying and modifying for months. Plus we have something they don't." "What's that?" "We can communicate with the swarm through Min Seo's psychic connection. If Dr. Jae-sung is right about a cure, we can deliver it directly to their hive mind." The plan was ambitious and dangerous. While the Coalition prepared their genocide weapon, humanity would attempt to heal their enemy, but first they had to survive the confrontation that was coming. The next day, Admiral Kethvar called General Sujin to a private meeting. The Admiral's office was decorated with artifacts from dozens of Coalition species, many of which Sujin now realized were probably extinct. "General, the Supreme Council has authorized the final phase of our war strategy," Kethvar said. "We're implementing the Null Generator Protocol, and that involves sacrificing Earth." Kethvar's expression didn't change. "The energy requirements are substantial, yes, but consider the alternative. If we don't end this war soon, the swarm will eventually reach your system anyway. At least this way, Earth's sacrifice serves a purpose." Sujin kept her voice steady. "My people didn't volunteer to have their homeworld destroyed. Your people volunteered to save the galaxy. This is how that salvation will be achieved. I refuse to authorize it. The Admiral's facade of politeness finally cracked. General, you misunderstand the situation. We're not asking for your authorization. We're informing you of our decision. Then you misunderstand humanity, Su-Jin replied. We don't accept being used as tools. You will comply, or you will be removed from command and confined. Su-Jin stood up slowly. Admiral, I think you'll find that removing 12,000 humans from your war effort is more difficult than you imagine. She left the Admiral's office knowing that the confrontation had begun. Humanity was now at war with both the Void Swarm and the Galactic Coalition. The Coalition's first move came that evening. Security forces surrounded human quarters across the fleet, demanding that all personnel report for reassignment. But Colonel Tae-hyun had prepared for this moment. All human units. This is General Su-Jin, she broadcast on their hidden communication network. The Coalition has revealed their true intentions. Effective immediately, we are operating under independent command. Protect yourselves and each other. What followed was the shortest rebellion in galactic history. Human forces, working with perfect coordination, simultaneously captured key Coalition ships across 6 star systems. Engineer Da-yoon's modifications to their equipment proved decisive. Coalition technology couldn't affect human weapons, but human weapons cut through alien defenses easily. Sergeant Hyejin led the assault on the command station at Keth Prime. Her team moved through the corridors like shadows, neutralizing Coalition security with non-lethal weapons when possible. They weren't murderers, they were soldiers protecting their home. Within hours, humanity controlled enough Coalition assets to prevent the null generator from being used. But their victory came with a terrible cost. They now faced the Void Swarm alone. The Coalition fleet is regrouping, reported Colonel Tae-hyun from the captured command center. They're preparing to engage both us and the approaching swarm forces. General Su-Jin looked at the tactical display showing 3 different fleets converging on their position. Coalition ships, swarm vessels, and 12,000 humans caught in the middle. Time to see if our theory about curing the swarm actually works, she said. Dr. Jae-sung and Corporal Min-seo were already preparing their attempt to communicate with the swarm hive mind. Engineer Da-eun had modified their equipment to amplify Min-seo's psychic abilities and transmit Dr. Jae-sung's cure directly to the enemy fleet. Remember, Jae-sung told Min-seo, you're not just fighting them, you're trying to heal them. Think of it as removing a poison that's been controlling them for centuries. Min-seo nodded and placed her hands on the modified transmission array. Her eyes closed and her breathing became slow and deep. General Su-Jin watched the displays as the 3 fleets moved toward each other. In a few hours, the fate of the galaxy would be decided. Humanity would either save everyone through compassion or die trying to prevent genocide. Either way, Earth's children would face their destiny as free beings, not as tools in someone else's war. The final battle began at dawn on Keth Prime. Though dawn was just a concept when 3 fleets faced each other in the darkness of space. General Su-Jin stood in the command center of her captured Coalition ship, watching the tactical display as destiny approached. The Coalition fleet hung to one side, their weapons charged and ready. Admiral Kethavar had sent a final message. Surrender now, or be destroyed with the swarm. There was no mercy in those words. Only the cold calculation of beings who saw genocide as an acceptable solution. The Void Swarm approached from the other direction, their organic ships writhing through space like living nightmares. But Corporal Min-seo, connected to her psychic amplifier, sensed something different about them today. They're confused, she reported to General Su-Jin. The swarm can sense our resistance to their mental influence, but they can also sense something else. Hope, maybe? Dr. Jae-sung monitored the biological data streaming from his experimental cure. The transmission is ready. We'll have one chance to reach their hive mind before the shooting starts. Engineer Da-yoon had worked for days preparing their hybrid human-alien technology for this moment. All systems are ready, General. Human weapons are charged and our defensive modifications are online. Colonel Tae-hyun studied the tactical situation with the calm of someone who had planned difficult operations before. The Coalition will try to destroy us first, then deal with the swarm using conventional weapons. We need to complete the cure transmission before they can stop us. General Sujin looked around at her senior staff. These people had volunteered to save the galaxy, and now they were about to attempt something no one had ever tried before: healing their enemy instead of destroying them. "Begin the transmission," she ordered. Corporal Minseo placed her hands on the modified array and opened her mind to the swarm. The psychic connection hit her like a wave of pain and confusion. For 3 centuries, the swarm had been trapped in a nightmare of endless hunger and violence, unable to remember who they used to be. Through the connection, Minseo felt their original nature. They had been called the Kethmani, and they had created beautiful art that could be seen from space. They had explored the galaxy not to conquer but to understand. They had been peaceful until the Coalition's bioweapon corrupted their minds. "I can see their memories," Minseo whispered, tears streaming down her face. "They remember everything they've destroyed, and they hate what they've become." Dr. Jae-sung's cure began flowing through the psychic link, a carefully designed biological program that would reverse the bioweapon's effects. But the process was slow, and the Coalition wasn't waiting. "Coalition ships are moving to attack," reported Sergeant Hai Jin from the weapons station. "Admiral Kethvar is targeting our transmission array." The first Coalition attack came from their most powerful ships, energy beams that could destroy planets fired at the human positions. But Engineer Daun's modifications held. Human defensive systems powered by alien technology but guided by human ingenuity absorbed the incoming fire. "Return fire," ordered General Sujin. "Protect the transmission at all costs." Human weapons, modified beyond anything the Coalition had seen before, struck back with devastating accuracy. Private Jin Woo, now promoted to tactical coordinator, had mapped Coalition ship weaknesses during months of careful observation. "Target their command centers first," he advised. "Without coordination, their fleet will be easier to manage." The battle raged across space as 2 civilizations fought for the right to determine the galaxy's future. Coalition ships designed for battles against the swarm found themselves unable to adapt to human tactics. Human forces used unpredictable patterns and concentrated fire to overwhelming effect. But the real drama was happening in Minseo's mind. Through the psychic link, she was witnessing the swarm's transformation. Dr. Jae-sung's cure was working, slowly undoing 3 centuries of biological corruption. "Something's happening," she reported. "One of the swarm ships has stopped attacking. The pilot is regaining consciousness." On the tactical display, a single swarm vessel suddenly changed course. Instead of attacking human or Coalition forces, it began broadcasting on all frequencies. "I remember," came a voice that hadn't been heard in 300 years. "I remember who we were." It was the Swarm Queen, the last surviving member of the original Kethmani leadership. The bioweapon had turned her into the central node of the hive mind, but Dr. Jae-sung's cure was restoring her individual consciousness. "My people," the Queen's voice continued, now reaching swarm ships across the galaxy. "Remember who we were. Remember our art, our exploration, our peace. The madness is ending." The effect was immediate. Swarm ships began shutting down their weapons as their pilots regained control of their own minds. The cure spread through their biological network like light driving away darkness. Admiral Kethvar watched his 300-year war ending in a way he had never imagined. "All ships concentrate fire on the human transmission array. We cannot allow this contamination to spread." But it was too late. The Swarm Queen used her restored abilities to amplify Dr. Jae-sung's cure across the entire galaxy. Every swarm vessel, from the largest hive ship to the smallest scout, felt the healing touch of restored consciousness. The Coalition fleet found itself facing not just 12,000 humans, but millions of newly awakened Kethmani who remembered exactly who had created the bioweapon that enslaved them. "Coalition vessels," the Swarm Queen broadcast. 3 centuries ago, your experiments stole our minds and turned us into monsters. Today, these humans have returned our freedom. We offer you one chance to surrender and face justice for your crimes." Admiral Kethvar's response was to order a desperate final attack on human positions. All remaining ships destroy the humans before they can spread their influence further. But Sergeant Hee Jin and her weapons teams were ready. Human firepower, concentrated and precise, disabled the remaining Coalition ships without destroying them. General Sujin had given orders to minimize casualties, even among enemies who had planned genocide. "Coalition fleet neutralized," reported Colonel Taehyun. "No further threats to the transmission array." Corporal Min Seo finally opened her eyes and stepped back from the psychic amplifier. She was exhausted but smiling. It's done. They're free. Dr. Jae-sung monitored the biological data flowing from across the galaxy. The cure has reached approximately 90% of swarm forces. The transformation is complete. General Soo-jin felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. Humanity had done something unprecedented. They had ended a galactic war through healing instead of destruction. The aftermath came quickly. The restored Kathmani used their advanced biotechnology to heal worlds damaged by centuries of warfare. The coalition, faced with the evidence of their crimes and the testimony of their victims, agreed to major reforms in their government. Admiral Kethavar was arrested by his own people when the full scope of the bioweapon project became public knowledge. The coalition species that had survived the war demanded justice and change. 3 months later, General Soo-jin stood on the observation deck of the first human-designed starship, looking out at Earth in the distance. The journey home had taken weeks, but humanity was returning as heroes of the galaxy. Dr. Yunho joined her at the window. The Kethmani want to establish an embassy on Earth. They say they owe us a debt that can never be repaid. We didn't do it for payment, Soo-jin replied. We did it because it was right. The coalition is offering full membership and access to their most advanced technology, Yunho continued. As equals this time, not as tools, Soo-jin nodded. Good, but we'll be careful. We've learned that advanced technology doesn't always mean advanced wisdom. Engineer Da-un had stayed behind in coalition space, working with Kethmani scientists to develop new technologies that combined human innovation with alien knowledge. Her reports described breakthroughs that would benefit everyone. Colonel Tae-hyun was establishing the Human Expeditionary Force, an independent military organization that would ensure humanity never again faced the galaxy unprepared. We trust, but we verify, he had said. Corporal Minseo had chosen to remain with the Kethmani, using her psychic abilities to help other species recover from the trauma of the long war. Her last message to Earth simply said, "The galaxy is healing." As Earth grew larger in the viewports, General Soo-jin thought about the lessons humanity had learned. They had discovered that compassion could be more powerful than weapons, that healing could be more effective than destruction, and that sometimes the most advanced solution was also the most humane. The Void Swarm was gone, replaced by the restored Kethmani, who were already sharing their art and knowledge with grateful worlds. The coalition had been reformed, its government now answerable to all species rather than just the powerful few, and humanity had taken its place among the stars, not as servants or tools, but as the species that chose healing over hatred when the galaxy needed it most. Dr. Yunho smiled as he watched Earth's continents rotate slowly below them. What do you think happens next? General Soo-jin considered the question. We explore, we learn, we make sure this kind of war never happens again. And if we meet new threats, then we remember what we learned here. Sometimes the enemy isn't evil. Sometimes they're just hurt.